So now you know the kind of consciousness model of human beings. But let's ask ourselves, why is it today that our lives are filled with, let's use the word, negative stuff, so much of it. A lot of stress and anxiety and worry and fear and other negative stuff like anger and hatreds, jealousy. We seem to have a lot of that. Why is that? Why is that? Why is there? You'd get that if you think about it a little bit, that must be stuff from the fear consciousness. Because love consciousness just accepts, trusts, and respects unconditionally. There's no problems with it. It's fear consciousness that can't do those things, that creates all these things, these complexities around it. So why is that? Why are our lives dominated by fear consciousness? Kind of takes us a little bit through life a little bit. Take a look at our history and what's actually happened. We know that if you look at what most dominant thoughts today are of Western science, and they have a very limited and restricted view of what history is. They don't recognize anything that's not documented or recorded on something. They don't recognize that history can be sent across verbally. For example, in songs and in stories. And if you take away the kind of let's call it the mystical aspects, or the where you add a little bit of salt and make it a little bit more romantic, just leave them aside and just look at the messages of all these ancient. I grew up in a culture which is filled with extraordinary stories going back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. We had stories of things that had happened on earth 150,000 years ago, 2 million years ago, and they discuss that. They talk about the different yugas and various things. So a lot of stories about these things. And I'm going to prove it to you or disprove it to you. I just wanted to share with you kind of my upbringing that opened my mind and said, I don't know whether that is true or not true, but gee, they teach us a lot about ourselves. And that was what was important. So what's happened? Let's take a look at how fear consciousness expands. You know that human beings learn mainly through interacting and observing other humans. That's our most significant form of learning. So when we created an earth, or a culture on earth, which gradually pervaded and covered the earth, a culture which saw humans as very restricted, as small, as according to some beliefs, as sinners, according to other beliefs, as unworthy. When we created that space, that kind of consciousness, that kind of belief systems, when you are young and you grow up, that is the message that is told to you, which, as you remember the identity, which further gives you reason to accept this identity as real. The stronger your identity becomes, or the stronger the evidence of your identity's reality, the stronger that evidence, the stronger your protection or defense mechanisms, and the stronger your fear consciousness. Makes sense, doesn't it? Think about life for a little while. Just observe that much of your life, especially if you've been born after World War II, when fear pervaded the world, that was the first time there was a true world war. World War I was a European war, it was not a world war. World War II was a true world war. The entire world was encapsulated, perhaps excepting South America to some extent. And fear spread across the world. It became a norm for the day-to-day lives of people for 5 years. And it seems to be after that human beings became very focused on protecting and defending. the rise of Cold War, for example, is very much a creature or a progeny of fear consciousness, isn't it? So if you start thinking about it, you grew up. Society which sat there and put distrust above everything else. So every mechanism in society in the last 60 years has gradually been designed to create enormous distrust and disconnection of you from others even more. So we have become a virtual police state without actually having the police pushing it, because we've got all kinds of other police. Thought police, fashion police, civil police, we've got everything else. We've started in a small way after World War II, and it has spread, where rather than encouraging beings to grow and expand, even our education systems seem to have designed to contract, to protect and defend, protect the status quo, protect the belief systems, protect the very structures of society. So you grew up in that space. So you and I, all of us, unseen to us, without even knowing it or realizing it, we're stuck here. And many of us rarely get an opportunity to live here. So when you go and do your normal programs, and a lot of us go, look, I don't like what's happening in my life. I met an extraordinary man who was a doctor, and he was a very prominent surgeon in Australia, absolutely wonderful human being. And he sat there, and I met him at a program that he was doing, which is one of these personal development programs, and he was just amazing. He looked at his life, and he was this guy who was highly prominent, been very successful, recognized everywhere, had been quoted and written extensively about, had a wonderful practice, beautiful family. He had all these things, and he came there and he said, there's something not right. Because he knew, we all know, something here, deep inside us is saying, there's something not right. It's because we live here, and he got that. And he had this extraordinary breakthrough which took him out of the world that he lived in. Because, his identity, just for your information, his identity was that I'm stupid, because that's what he heard his mom say when he was about 3 years old. And then, in order to compensate for that, to protect other people from knowing that he's stupid, he became a surgeon. It's interesting, isn't it? So, fear consciousness. It's expanded. It's gone. So think about your life. What do you focus on? Power? Money? A house? A man or woman partner? What do you focus on? What's really important in your life? And then ask yourself, why? What do you ask? You'll have questions. You'll have things like security. Oh, companionship. Someone to love me. Think about it. Recognition. Others' respect. What are they all creatures of? Fear consciousness. So I want you to think. I want you to stop for a moment and think about your life. Because we're going to make a great breakthrough in the next sessions. This is going to be really interesting to you. The next session is about the choice that we really have and we are unaware of.